I'm going to assume.
Hello and welcome to our weekly Energy Shot podcast. This is the last one for 2021. So, yay, we made it! A year of podcast.
Yes, this is not easy, like to find someone that you can, do something with. Especially in this world moment, like people are moving, shifting, changing, So I just want to thank you, Nicole, for being the consistent rock that you are in my life. You're amazing.
For the inspiration and all of it.
It's nice to have that. Yeah.
Yes, it's beautiful. You're right. I mean, I can tell with Ally Vision also, it's to find people which are having a constant output of creation, that are willing to put in the work, because it is hard work. I mean, I thought it's like 45 hours this year where we were like on the podcast, plus about the double to prepare it, for you to prepare, for me to prepare, for the cutting and it's work, and I love it that we're doing this together. I think it's amazing.
Yes. I think we'll be here for a long time.
You have the intro perfectly. We are Matt Taylor, and my name is Nicole Ercolani, and we have decided to produce this podcast in order to give you a weekly astrological update. And then we have the energy shots, the coaching tools, the healings, everything practical. And so you have a better assistance for your day-to-day life, and that's all we want to do for you. So let's start.
Okay, so here we are at the end of the year. We're at Christmas. We're in winter, but energetically, well, winter is an energy, but energetically, we're also with the full moon of Capricorn in Cancer. Just to let people know that Kabbalistically, or with the lunar cycles, we're just a little bit different to Western astrology. But we realign in the next couple of months, and I'll explain that when we come to it. Right? So they come back to us. All right, so here it's a very particular special moment because we're really closing so many cycles. Like there's cycles within cycles that we're closing. So for the past, 3 or 4 weeks, we've had Gemini rising, and the rising in the world's chart is always about, what are we putting at the front? What are we really looking at? And with the Gemini rising, it's looking at learning, teaching, thinking, speaking, interacting. Right, this is where we are mostly busy with, and that can mean we want to be a little bit more social. We want to be passing on more information. We want to be thinking about things in very different ways. So we're very busy with the mind. It's all with the, very looking at things in a whole other perspective over the month. So Gemini is, sort of very interesting because it's like, how do I want to connect? What information, what dialogues, what debates, discussions, all of those things do we need to have, right? So here, the finalizing is coming in this week. We also have finalizing much more, sort of as an impact in the world, is the karmic destiny changer, which is the North Node in Gemini. It's finalizing as we speak. And so this has been uprooting all old dogmatic singular thinking, giving us multi-view perspectives on things. So the two things finalizing this week, in the middle of an eclipse, at the time of the shortest day of the year, really like take us out of our brain and shake it up. Yes, and do a little maneuver of our brain and twist it all around, and so we get a new one at the end. We get a whole different way of not looking, but a whole different way of thinking about and speaking to something. Who cares? What does that matter? So what is very important. What the Kabbalists are saying here is that what we speak is what we create. In other words, my words coming out my mouth are really only the effect of where my consciousness was at the time. So we think, if we look at practically, that I have a thought, and the thought's from my brain. And therefore, because my brain is telling me that thought, it must be right. And so I'm going to speak to it, right? That is an unconscious, you know, basic sort of way of looking at something, right? This is just someone who, oh, my thought's right. This is what I'm going to speak to. Why doesn't anybody else understand that? But if I've got it, why doesn't everybody else have it? Right? This is a very basic way of living life, right?
I love those people.
Not uncommon, but very basic. Who put the thought? What put the thought there in the first place? How did you come to have that thought? And why don't I have it? And why doesn't Nicole have it? And why do you only have it? And vice versa, right? Why don't we all have the same thought on the same thing? Why is that? Because we're all at a place of a different consciousness, right? And so I can only get the thought, the level of thought that connects to my level of consciousness. If my consciousness is low, I have low thoughts, regardless how intellectual we feel we are, regardless how long you've been at university. It's still a low vibrational thought because there's no logic in the world, right? So that blows out academia. Okay, so it's really at the state of consciousness that, you know, this Gemini has come in and shaken everything out to make us look, well, where are you at in your mind? Because wherever you're at your mind sets the tone for where you're going to be in reality. It can only be that way, right? Even if you're thinking like me, you would have to agree with that. Whatever I think makes me speak to those words and then makes me do those actions, and therefore I have that reality, right? But there's a point before the thought. It's like an electromagnetic sort of thinking, right? I can only connect in the Wi-Fi to what my brain is at. So if my Wi-Fi box is 2G, I get 2G inputs, yes? I get that level. It's slower, it's not so good, it breaks down, it's a bit staticky, yes. And if I'm at my highest level of Wi-Fi, my Wi-Fi box being my brain is like really on point, it's so like high level. I attract in that level of thought, yes? So it's really to the degree of where my awareness is, my bigger mind, my meta mind, my greater mind is to the amount of input I can have into my brain, because the brain's only electromagnetic, right? So here, this Gemini is over the past 18 months in the karmic destinator has either moved people or not, right? The people out there with this is my way of thinking, this is only the way of thinking, and we call them keyboard warriors, right? Whereas it's like, it has to be like this, and this is the one path we can only take, right? Are kind of being left behind. This is the new left behind, right? Now, the new advanced model, right? The new shift of people is the conscious people, right? So people growing in their awareness of who they are, awareness of the world, awareness of what's happening around them, and have the mental audacity and strength and capacity to still speak to what they want to see in the world, even if the world is looking completely at odds, especially when the world is looking completely at odds to what they want to do, right? So here is a moment where some people, let's make it practical. Here's a moment where some people will think, oh, this world is so upside down, I can't do anything, right? Not going to leave my job. I'm going to play safe and secure. And, you know, it's a reasonable thought. There's no reason why. And there's other people going to go, I'm going to completely go on my way and do what, achieve the things I want to achieve, and not let the kind of confusion take them away from that. Yeah. So here we can go over the physical world. It's mind over matter. Yeah, this is the big Kabbalistic teaching. And I'm not sure about in yogic science, but definitely in Kabbalistic teaching, the mind is over the matter. This is not basic thinkers. Basic thinkers think this is the physical world and I have to think to that, which makes me a victim, right? Makes me like, oh, this is all of this out here is, leading me to think like this. We have to shift this so that whatever I'm inserting into this brain is really clearly the direction I want to go. So the mind is always over setting the mind, the greater mind, to give me the thought that I need. Kabbalistically, we could eradicate chaos. most Kabbalists that come to this world could take out chaos in a second. They didn't do it because we have a process. They had to restrict. It's a big restriction, right? Imagine seeing your own children in a chaos and you have to restrict to let it go through a process. They have to do it for 7 billion people. So, so this is the restriction that they're doing, is they can give us the consciousness of the consciousness, but they can't interfere in our process, right? Because we all have a process. So here, the 72 names of God, for example, were a tool that allows us to get the frequencies that get over this physical world. So I use them in the meditations I do for my ally, right? They got a frequency in it. So you set your mind into the frequency that you need to be in to get into that reality. Very, very difficult thing to put your mind into. But what we'll see as an effect of these last 18 months of this, Gemini North Node of uprooting dogmatic, reactive, singular thinking and getting into a multi-dimensional perspective is the ability to be able to be above the physical world with our thought. Thought is such the seed level of everything that's going to create your reality. So if you have one, you have to check it. You can't just assume it's correct. We have 70,000 in a day. So, which one of those is correct? That's just the ones in your mind. Times that by 7 billion. And that's how many thoughts are going on, right? So which one's correct? So only our state of consciousness can allow us to understand which seed level of thought I can have that is going to give me the right thinking, the right that take me to the right people time for the right amount of whatever I'm after. Intentions inform the result. If you don't have a clear consciousness, if you don't have a clear awareness of what you're doing, if you don't set intentions, the chances are we act in our own robotic, singular thought, singular dimensional way of thinking. And that takes us down into the singular same result as we heard 45,000 times, right? So here we're getting up above the mind into intentions, consciousness, and awareness. And once we can understand that what's my state of consciousness I need to be in now to get the result that I want to be in, once I can get into that, then I'm getting myself above the physical reality and I can split it, the physical reality, I can open it up and I can take my own journey through.
Okay, it's on me. I was like, oh, maybe it's going on. No. Okay. I feel to speak about two things today for this last December 2021 podcast. And I feel to speak about how from a psychological way, how we define reality. So you can imagine there is a little man on a sheet of paper. And for those of you that want to see my amazing drawing skills, you can go to YouTube and you can see it there. So there is a little man and he has crazy hair, to be very honest with you. And this little man, he sees a tree, and he thinks that what he sees is a truth. So the tree is green and it has a stem and it has some roots and the tree has leaves and, he sees a tree. But how the tree in his reality is the tree is defined by the layers that he has in his subconscious landscape. One layer can be what your parents told you about the tree or about any trees. Like it's in general, it's like your upbringing is one layer that is like having an influence on your perception of reality. Then it depends on where you grew up. You will see the tree differently if you grew up in the jungle of the Amazon with a tribe of indigenous people than if you were to grow up in New York, than if you were to grow up in Norway, than if you were to grow up in Thailand. your perception of reality of this tree is a different one coming from a collective that you belong to. The collective thought patterns, the collective reality, what is perception as truth or non-truth, as real or unreal, is depending on where you're coming from in certain cases. That's probably not true for the tree, but it's certainly true for when is a man or a woman valuable. Like when you grew up in the Amazon and you're 15, you're valuable when you're able to kill a chicken and go into the forest for 3 months and come back and still be alive. Then you're a valuable member of society. Well, in Switzerland or in Spain or in any Western country, that would be kind of a little bit difficult. Like guys going out into the forests and coming back with chickens without heads, that would probably not be very well taken. That you would rather be looked at as a little bit crazy than as a good member of society. So that's what I mean by that. And so in every one of us, there are many, many, many layers. There is values. There is your belief system. Did you grow up in an atheist family, in a Catholic family, in a Buddhist family, in a Muslim family? Did you grow up in a city or on the village? Like many, many, many different layers of belief system, of behavior patterns that create your perception of reality. And what also creates a different look at your perception of the reality is your traumas, the experiences that you had in life. If you grew up as a child in Syria in the last 5 years, your perception of reality, if the world is a safe place, will be a completely different one than when a child grew up in a very safe home in, let's say, Sweden. It's just a very different layer that when you had had to fight for your life, or you never had to fight for your home at all. It's the reality is a different one. So how you perceive the world is always, and I mean always with every person, defined by your layers of like truth, of belief system, of behavior pattern, of what you learned. And so whatever you learned during your childhood was valid, like during your also teens and 20s, like it was true at that time. The question always is it still true? Is it still true that every foreign, like let's say you grow up in a very right-oriented family in the heart center of the mountains of Switzerland. Let's take that as an example. So everyone that was coming from outside is like dangerous, and this is what your family learned you, like all strangers are like not to be trusted, and we have to keep our family close together, and and that might have been true back in the days, right? Like, when there was no law and order, that was true. But still today, in the 2021s, it's still families that have those belief systems because they're still having this inherent truth within their body-mind system that strangers are something dangerous. So, well, if then someone's coming from another country, for example, let's stay with the Syrian idea, like there are people coming as refugees from another country because there is war. So the perception of those people is not an open-minded one. It's not like, oh, welcome, I'm so sorry for you that you had to go through this wartime. No, the perception of those people is like, oh my God, those are strangers. They will steal my food and they will rape our children, and they're wearing those strange headscarves, and that will be the truth. When someone else in the same village, for example, has a very open-minded reality and say, oh wow, those are people that need help, so I will go to them and bring clothes for their children. Because if I would have gone through war and would have had to flee my home country, I would be very happy to have someone that helps me, right? So this is how the different realities exist. Is one of them true? No. And yes. It's as true as your layers of the subconscious landscape. So everyone that is telling you something, that's the truth, and this is like, wah, 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 wah. Yeah, it's true for you. So the conscious human, the person that has a higher consciousness, is capable of listening to everyone, to every truth, and still deciding, is this truth of that person a vibrational match for me or not? And I think this is what's going on, like with this finalizing in Gemini, this finalizing, like we need to, like at least, I feel I have built a vastly higher capacity to accept different realities in this year than ever before. What about yourself, Matt?
Yes, I mean it's the challenge we've all been faced with, right? Because if you didn't, you would have no friends and no family, wouldn't you? I mean, you tell me anyone who completely agrees with anybody. I could hold up a pencil and somebody would disagree with me that it's a pencil. Like, we're so in that energy at the moment. Yeah. And you have to understand, you have to shift your mind to understand where they're coming from. And so it's like the mind is becoming more elastic. And this is great. Yeah. That's right. It's becoming more abstract as well. Like, it's all flipped over into things I can't see. I can't even see my money anymore. So I don't know where it is, where it's coming from, where it's going. And as you say, that used to count your money, to put it in the bank yourself, to have someone sign it off. I remember those days, and that gave you great sources of security. Understand, oh yes, the lady's got it now, and she signed it off now, and it's in my passbook, like in my book as this now. And we had, and then the bank sent me a thing to with a letter to say where I'm up to. Feel very safe and secure. We don't get any of that anymore. You're lucky to see one person, right? You don't see anybody. To a bank, right? Yeah. The banks are closing, and shrinking. So this big thing that we've built up about, the banks look after me and all of that. Where does that go? It doesn't mean that they're not good people, but that whole philosophy is gone, right? It's a great example, right? So this whole idea of what we cling to and what we think about things and what my idea of it is and what's really true, where did all that go, right? Because it's movable. We need to be elastic in the mind, especially now. When Saturn and Jupiter went into Aquarius last year, it set the new 200-year cycle of air energy, which is everything in the air. My thoughts, my money, yes. Yeah. My property, mostly intellectual property now, is booming. People putting down their new ideas, their innovation changes, codes, QR codes, all of this stuff, AI, whether we like it, agree with it, doesn't matter, it's coming, right?
It's already,
and we're going to have to live with it. So it's already here. So it's just a new way of experiencing reality. But the whole last 18 months has flipped us forward a lot more. So it's coming to an end, right? And next year, what we're going to do is we're going to, like in the first podcast next year, we're going to give you a roadmap for the year, a broad roadmap. And then the following podcast will break it down into the weeks, right? Yeah. So we'll speak to what the new one is, right? But to know that if you're still stuck in your mind, which I think is highly unlikely, about anything, and you haven't been confronted with many, many different ideas. As I said last week, you're not in the reality, you're on another planet, right? So this is all on the energy. Now, Mercury, which rules Gemini, is very important to look at when you look at Gemini rising, finishing. You're looking at over the past 3 or 4 weeks, and we're looking at the Gemini North Node wrapping up after 18 months. Let's look at what Mercury is doing. So Mercury, which is the planet of thinking, is at this point in Capricorn, which is really about transparency, accountability, responsibility, responsible thinking. That's accountable thinking, transparent thought. Yeah. So this is kind of going to be a new value system that is shaking it up, that I want my consciousness to be responsible, right? I want my own, I want to be responsible for my thinking, or I want other people to be responsible for what they're saying. Responsible speaking, responsible thinking, responsible consciousness, accountable to that, right? In other words, the reality that I see in front of me, who's responsible for that? If I've had 3 relationships that didn't work out, who's responsible for that? Those 3 people is what most people would say. They were terrible people. They didn't do what I told them to do, right? It's so irrational. It's so silly when you break it down like this. You're the only person that experienced that. It's obvious. It's you. Newsflash, right? People still don't get a very simple concept. That if you see it if you spot it, you got it, right? This is what we're saying. Now, so this whole shift is now saying, if you want freedom and you don't see freedom, then you are not in your consciousness as a free person, right? If you want to see even tangible things, if you want to see a larger bank balance, then somewhere in your mind, you're not living into that. You have to be responsible for that. So here, responsible thought, responsible consciousness, responsible speaking, responsible actions is coming back as a new value, right? Which is great spiritually, because we're always saying you are responsible for that, right? And people go, oh yes, in nodding their head, and then walk out going, oh, how ridiculous. Surely it's him. Yes? Mm-hmm. Just look at him, right? But if you've spotted, you got it. And this is going to be my new slogan, for the month ahead over Christmas. If you're looking at people and you're talking at the TV and saying what somebody is, some person you don't know, and you've got the great idea of, you've summed it up somehow, actually you're talking about yourself. And this will become more evident as the cycle goes on into the year, that you are in an illusionary reality where this great big field is playing itself back at you. This kind of mirror that we're living in is actually all just you. Interestingly, there's a new remake of The Matrix, which is all about Kabbalistic astrology, right? And even though he died, he come back to life again. So I'm very excited about the timing of this resurrection. It's called Matrix the Resurrection, which is very Kabbalistic. We have a very famous person who was Kabbalist who did a resurrection and showed us a few things. Right, so it's very interesting, the timing, because we're really resurrecting in a whole new way. Opportunity to resurrect in a whole new way. And that starts in the mind.
Amazing. I feel to say in this week, we have the 21st of December as well. And yes. The 21st of December is the winter solstice. And in the lineage that I am part from, in the Kundalini yoga lineage, as well as in many yoga lineages, this is one of the most important days, apart from summer solstice and 2 equinoxes. Because the sun is standing in a very specific degree and is shining its light in a very specific degree on planet Earth. And it is really, really important to use that day in our philosophy. So if you ever felt or feel like you want to maybe have a certain kind of elevation going on, or you want to really learn something new, this day would be amazing to really release what is blocking you. It's the day of the subconscious mind, the day where we clear our blood, the day where we cleanse and clear our physical body, so that the blood change is having a new quality to bring you more energy, more chi, more prana for your next months, so you can really do what you came here to do. And yeah, I think I'm giving a Kundalini yoga class at 8 p.m. On the 21st, 8 p.m. CET. So if you feel called, it's 11 a.m. LA, it's 2 p.m. New York, it's 7 p.m. London, and 8 p.m. Central Europe Standard Time. And it's the link is in my bio, and you are more than welcome to join this class in order to experience some cleansing, clearing, and some higher realm energies to really download into your subconscious mind, so you can maneuver yourself to a new reality, like Matt and I just spoke about the whole podcast.
Yes, I mean, if I think about it, even I don't want my thoughts sometimes. Right?
Yeah.
So we live with this idea that, you know, the thought is ever so powerful, but really, before that, in a state of consciousness and a state of elevating up, towards these higher frequencies, to collect greater thoughts, to have better ideas, to not see problems but to see solutions, to not have chaos but to see light, is an option. It's a very valid option. We are in there to see light in a seamless reality, as flawless as the universe itself, if I can connect to it. Right? I'm a little bit far. I'm not quite there yet, but I've got an objective. I know sort of where the direction is I'm going, which is good. So to have flawless thought, you have to connect to a flawless reality, which is outside of this universe. Right? This universe is with the physical, it's flawed. Right? We're imperfect people, but within the perfect system. Right? And so we've got to get our mind out of the physicality into the flawless reality. Right? Mind over matter, right? So whatever we're presented with in this meta field, right? Or this hologram, whatever you like to call it, mirror is a good word,
yeah,
right? Is a reflection of directly where my consciousness is at, right? It's a reflection of where I'm at in my reality. Is it changeable? Kabbalists would say yes. How? By having responsibility for that. So here, this is where we're heading as we shift into the next year. That if we can somehow say, oh, if I change my way of connecting to that greater mind, which Nicole is telling us there's many tools for on My Ally and what she's been offering through the year, many, many different tools. So, right, then I get a download, which is complete, rather than a half-baked thought that maybe may or may not be correct. Most probably not. Right? Yes. So that's where we're at. We're looking to be downloading from the flawless reality, from the flawless system, getting above this physical reality. It's going to be so important getting above this physical reality as the North Node shifts from Gemini into Taurus, where the physical reality will be shown in so many or not so many ways, unshown, shown, all completely illusionary, right? This is where we're going. So I have to be able to really focus the energy of where I'm going. I mean, this timing of this matrix is really brilliant, right? Obviously, the writers are onto it, but because they never come with these matrix movies are so particular at their timing about what they're exposing us to, right? And they're really connecting us into the Kabbalistic astrology beautifully, how I can break out of these patterns, how I can get over the physical reality with the oracle, i.e. the consciousness, right? So they're showing us so beautifully. I can't wait to see it. It's gonna be my, as soon as it's out, and I love Keanu Reeves. Little childhood crush, right? So absolutely my favorite. The whole thing for me is wrapped up for me. It's just like, oh, they made this movie for me again because it's got my favorite actor. It's all about the things I like talking about.
I think you will not.
Yeah, I just indulge in that. The final point for this year is Mars will be entering into Sagittarius over the full moon and over the shortest day of the year, as Nicole was talking about. So this Mars with Sagittarius goes very nicely because Mars is a very fiery planet, red, and Sagittarius is a fire sign. So they kind of go, you know. They're both about going big, going hard. They my will, my sheer will. Yes. Sagittarius speak very optimistically, right? But they don't speak responsibly. They speak like how everything is going to go well, but they don't take the actual action. They don't take responsibility for that, right? So that comes with this Mercury Capricorn. So here we're going to go, I want to live out this big life. Well, then the fingers that you're pointing at that are stopping you need to be turned around and be pointing at your lovely self, right? So that is the feelings we're going to have over Christmas. Big senses of optimism, big senses of new journeys, big senses of new possibilities, but how do I get there? And if you look to the outside world as it's stopping you, you will not go anywhere, but probably the other direction. You need to look at yourself and say, how do I set up my consciousness to get me there? You know, how do I set myself up if I'm going to go to war, like a more internal war to demonstrate to myself that I am a creator of these big journeys, then I need to set up the battle correctly. And I need to have the consciousness correct in the beginning. And then that is the result that you will see.
I feel to speak some words in general for everyone listening and all our listeners for this time. First of all, I want to thank you, everyone, that you guys are listening our podcast so frequently, and for the messages and the feedbacks. We really, really love that. And yesterday I saw a quote and I really liked it a lot, and I wanted to share it with you. It says, if all things come from God and all things go to God, then where do you stand? Then your permanent home is God. And for me, I would like to let you go into this Christmas season and the new year with this vibration. I really wish upon you that you understand how divine you are and how exclusive and absolutely amazing it is that you are here on this planet, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like that. And we in Kundalini Yoga, we think that there is the long time sun, like the huge central sun, which is existing in the universe. There's a really nice video to that on YouTube when you see how far away it is. And we always pray that this long time sunshine may be upon you, and that all love will surround you, and the pure light within you, like your God within you, is guiding you way on and is doing that on and on and on. And these are my deepest wishes from the bottom of my heart for every one of you, and especially for you, Matt, because what we create together, I really appreciate you a lot. Not to say that I love you. Yes. I probably do.
We'll save that for next.
Yes.
This relationship is growing. No.
All right.
We don't want to be jumping into things too quick.
No, we don't.
No, let's keep. All right. Thank you. I feel the same. I feel the same. My actions, I hopefully speak louder than my words. I'm still here.
Yeah, I know. And I know how honored I am. There are others.
It's funny.
Okay, you guys. Right. Thank you so much for listening. If you like to see, read, learn more about what we speak, go to li.vision. If you want to book a session, go to demattaylorexperience.com. Or me, you find me on LI Vision, and also on Instagram, Nicole Ercolani _official. And yeah, that's about it. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone.
Bye, everybody. See you next year.
Bye-bye.